Hi, Jen. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. Trish and I are just trying to get some weather control in here. We've got the AC and the heat running today, different times. Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Are we ready to go, Trish?
Yes.
Yes, we're ready.
I'll call the meeting to order. And Carrie, can you would you do the flag salute? You're muted.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, this is Carrie
Yes.
Waddy. Please follow me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Rob Wild,
Present.
Darlene McGee, absent. Martha McLaughlin. You're muted.
Present.
Okay. Carrie Waddy,
Here,
Tom O'Gorman, absent. Laura Lee George, absent. Lois Risling, present. We have a quorum. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
this is Carrie Waddy, and I move to adopt the agenda.
And I'll second that.
Is there a second? It's been moved in second to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Rob Wild,
Aye.
Martha McLaughlin,
Aye.
Carrie Waddy,
Aye.
Lois Risling. Yes, motion carries. Action items. Public hearing, learning continuity plan. Public hearing for the KTJUSD learning continuity plan. Draft. Let the hearing begin.
Okay, I have public comment from a call in from Misty Rickwald. I'll admit her to the meeting. Give me just one moment. Misty, would you like to give us your public comment?
She's muted.
I can't unmute her. She needs to unmute herself by dialing *6. Go ahead, Misty.
Oh, okay, good. I couldn't hear the first part of what was being said. I just wanted to comment that I think that it would be safer and wiser to keep students on the distance learning for now, at least through the cold and flu season and the winter months, and then maybe reevaluate things in the spring. And that was my simple comment.
Thank you, Misty.
I guess I would add that either way, I would be keeping my kids at home.
Thank you, Misty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have have another public comment from Erica Tracy. I'll admit her. Erica, can you hear us? Are you there, Erica?
She's muted.
Yeah, Erica, can you unmute yourself by dialing *6? There you go.
All righty. Awesome.
You there, Erica?
I am.
So what was your public comment?
I have a few, and for some reason, YouTube didn't start till, I don't know if it's my end and slow connectivity or what, so I can't see you all and didn't hear the
So what was your
start
public
of the
comment?
meeting. So I don't even know who's all there.
Okay, well, it's Lois, Rob, Carrie, Martha, David Lon, Carmi, me, and Jen.
Okay. And then so I'm sorry, obviously this is like the first time we're doing this. So for the public comment that's being shared, has any public comment been read, or am I the first one to speak?
We took one public comment by phone right before you.
Okay, and then written comment that was submitted will be read by you or Jen? Is that how that's going to work?
Yes, I'll read it after your comment.
Okay, just trying to get my bearings here. Okay, so I do have a few comments and some feedback for you all. So I literally just made it through the 20-page document. Erica Tracy, Education Director for the Hoopa Valley Tribe. And there were some corrections that I wanted to make, and then also a general comment after some consultation with some of our program managers and different parents that we've heard from as feedback to be considered for this plan's adoption. So probably the fastest, best way, and I will email this to you, Jen and Trish, and probably David as well, I assume, so that it's also in writing and you can follow along in case you don't follow my words. So the first adjustment that I think needs to be made is on page 1, when the paragraph that talks about the current orders in place, that needs to be corrected. So as far as the Hoopa Valley Tribe, the original shelter-in-place order was effective March 19th, and the current order that we are still under, that I think you were referring to for the April 1st, is a stay-at-home order. So I just felt like that was important to note, especially if that's one of the factors of coming and going and what class sizes will be and all of those things. So that seemed like a major correction that needed to be made. For page 3, regarding the participation in public meetings and public hearings, that also will need to be updated now that we have this new YouTube call-in type of format, which is definitely different and not as easily accessible, but should be noted that it's not as easy as just jump on a Zoom anymore. And just thought that needed to be stated, especially since this is the format for this public hearing in particular. Page 5, I think it was noted in some places, but I don't think it was noted everywhere, the time frame of different things. So like, for example, the district survey and the school site surveys, I thought that was really important to highlight the dates that those surveys were taken, because I assume we will probably be taking more surveys in the coming months or even weeks, as we're trying to figure out if some of this data may have changed. So for example, this was obviously many months ago at this point, when everybody was in favor of distance learning only. And my assumption is that that's probably changing now that people are feeling what distance learning only feels like. Not page 7, I guess we'll skip to page 10. And this will kind of tie more to my comments that I'll make here as soon as I get through my few little edits here. But in page 10, it definitely talks about the intention of those opening days of school with the emphasis on connecting with students and assessing needs and building relationships with families. I do appreciate that that was the intent, though I don't know how successful that has been, or is still kind of, I think, working out the kinks and trying to figure out the best ways to communicate with families. But that is something that I've been hearing from different families of kind of all grades and ranges as far as what kinds of contacts and what kinds of relationships are being built or not being built. So I just wanted to highlight that and just say that if we are going to say that that's what we're doing, how are we going to hold our staff, especially, to being accountable to make sure that those things are happening, even if it's not as easy as a voicemail on a phone. Page 11, there was a reference to the remote learning and positive routines for remote learning. I also thought that that was a positive thing to be stated and provided, but I also think that there's room to expand on that further, or also to question if we should include that, because I don't know that those things have been explicitly provided to families and students, or if it has, it may have only been on kind of case-by-case, teacher-by-teacher scenarios, and I'm not sure that all of our parents are receiving that information that would obviously kind of make the process smoother for all parties involved, students, teachers, and families. So I wanted to highlight that portion as well.
Can you say which section you're looking in, Erica? Is it the access to devices?
No, it's right above that.
Okay.
It is important that students have reliable
Okay.
internet access for online learning. It's right above access to devices and connectivity, that last line there. And I don't have the figure, but right when I was being connected to you all, I was on the other line with Linnea. So I'm going to call Linnea back and include this in my email. But in the access to devices and connectivity portion, I did feel that it was also important to highlight that the Hoopa Valley Tribe is also pursuing a multi-million-dollar project right now to increase our broadband access as well. So I will get the exact dollar amount in a sentence for you to include in that access to devices, because we are also working, and Linnea especially is working pretty diligently to try to get some connectivity going as well. So wanted to make sure that that was included, and I'm sorry I don't have those exact figures or wording on me this second, but I will as soon as I hang up with you all. And then 13. I know that we're in the infant stages and probably have only started to really hone in on what those special education services need to look like and how they will be provided. But I thought that it was an extremely bold statement, and not to say that this isn't the goal, because obviously we all want this to be the goal, but all students with IEPs continue to receive the services outlined in their plan. I don't know that we've ever successfully done that pre-COVID, so all students. So I just wanted to highlight that one as well, that if we're going to say that, then let's stand by it and really figure out how we're going to provide those services. And obviously some of those services, are you providing one-on-one aides in their homes? Probably not. So I guess that would also entail some sort of a change in IEPs too, right? Because one-on-one aides, that's assumed in person, so having to modify that, whether that's more one-on-one Zoom time or one-on-one phone calls or however that looks for different students. I just was surprised to see that that was the plan. Well, not the plan, but just that it was stated that that's what's happening right now. Though I know that we're kind of in the process of doing assessments and whatnot too. So I just wanted to bring that out there, because if that's what it's going to be, then I will be sure to let all of our families know that that is the expectation and absolutely what they should be receiving. And then page 13 also, when we get to the budget portion, I was curious if there's a way to make some of the budget factors, and this actually goes across the board for all of the budget tables, if there's a way to specify a little bit further as to what funding is going for direct student services and what is going for staff. So for example, my assumption when I read this is that the $225,000, the $120,000, all of that is hopefully going to student use. And then maybe the $83,000 and the $87,000, that's more geared towards staff. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's a yes. And we did separate that out purposefully.
Okay, so it's still unclear to me though.
Yeah.
So if you can still add that somehow to really say this is student services, this is staff, equipment or what have you, I think that would be helpful. Same with like the manipulatives and things, I assume that's all for going directly to students and into student homes. Let's see, 13, 15. The learning loss budget. I don't know if there is a formula attached to this plan that has to be, a portion has to go to certain things, or if that is purely to the discretion of the school district. But I was surprised that in terms of pupil learning loss, that such a small amount seems to be there, but I also understand we have huge technology needs, so maybe that's where the budget was primarily going. But I just think that the loss is huge, and I don't know that we have I don't think we're far enough in the school year and obviously haven't had adequate time to really assess to know what that loss, the learning loss actually is. But I just think that it's going to be greater than what this funding is representative of. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. Page 17. There was mention at the top, not school nutrition, but above school nutrition. When it's talking about SARB, I was curious as to what that means. I know what SARB is, but using that and I guess highlighting that as part of the pupil and family engagement and outreach seemed a little odd to me or off. And so it did talk about how it might be kind of a challenge with it being an online tool and be something different, but it seemed like a stretch that I didn't quite understand. So I was hoping that could be elaborated a little bit further, especially because I'm still very unclear, both as a parent and also an educator, how the attendance process is working. And so what does that look like for a family that ends up getting a referral to SARB and then going through that process, and how is that measured and what qualifies for that? So I just thought that was interesting that that was there. I don't know if anybody can speak to that or if I'm just giving comments right now.
You're just giving comments right now, but I think that clarifying that will be, well, go ahead and finish all your comments. Let's stick with that for now, because I'm taking notes.
Okay. So far, I don't know that SARB has been a very restorative practice. So that's my hesitation and my concern. And just because it then links directly into social emotional curriculum, and other things I'm a little bit leery of leaving it there, because I think we were in the process last school year of trying to enhance or better the way that it was working, and also working closer with the tribal courts, I believe, for enforcing instead of just the county and the DA's office. So I'm not sure if that progress was made completely, because obviously things were kind of put to a halt, but I just have some strong reservations about that format in general. And then page 18, just again, with the budget, trying to be clear as to what is going to students and what is going to staff, or if there's a way to break that down even further. So like, just that's the general budget comments. And then I was curious as to the specifics of the social emotional curriculum for TK to 12th grade. Site principals and management supervisors provide wellness support to staff. So I wasn't sure what that meant, but I felt like it needed to be broken down further. That's another example of like, of the 33,000, how much of that is for curriculum that's going to reach our students, and how much of that is going to be like the sunshine committee, like trying to keep morale going for staff, which is absolutely necessary as well, but just to better understand that breakdown. Those are my immediate edits. Everything else, and I'm sorry, this was all of like my constructive feedback. I was trying to comb through and didn't know how much time I would have or what this format would be. So there were some positives in here. I just did not have the chance to highlight them. But if I didn't talk about it, I think that I was pretty okay with most of what was in there. And then just in closing, the general comments that I wanted to share, I did not get to fully engage with the survey that went out that we had talked about in like our Indian Policies and Procedures Task Force and elsewhere, but I did in between times try to check in with some different parents, some of our program managers that work with K-12 students and families and are already kind of on the ground working directly with students through this distance learning process. So I wanted to share some of the things that were brought to my attention. So I will summarize that quickly. I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about those first 2 weeks, and I remember Jen and I having those conversations about, yes, let's focus on relationship building, let's focus on building rapport, getting acquainted, feeling, understanding what this process is going to look like in this weird distance learning COVID-19 structure. And that sounded great. And now, as I'm hearing more and more from different people that are in Zoom as teachers or student teachers or parents, and then also from students and then families trying to struggle to get to Zoom, I am not sure that we are doing the things we're saying with fidelity and consistency. I think that our amazing, overachieving, especially those homegrown teachers that are going above and beyond, or long time district teachers that love our community, love our kids, know the family dynamics, know the challenges that we're dealing with, even just to find a device, find a strong enough internet connection to get onto a Zoom call or a Google Meet or whatever it might be. I think that those educators are always amazing, and no matter what format we throw at them, they're going to do their absolute best, and I think that's happening. However, I also think that there are some that are not doing that or not performing to the level that we need them to, and might be taking more of a passive approach. As far as I attempted to make contact with a family. I left a voicemail a couple times, and maybe it was during the day, and maybe that's a parent that is an essential worker, but maybe they don't even know that that parent is an essential worker. So I'm just wondering what that accountability process is going to be between administrators and their teachers to make sure that those contacts are being made, because it sounds like I can count like probably at least a handful of families that have had zero contact still. And some of those families being like K through 3rd district students. So that's especially worrisome. I have a kindergartner personally, and I am freaking out because I am really trying to figure out how that love that kids decide they have for school that may or may not be brief happens now, and how we do that during this time is extremely challenging. So for little guys that are like TK through third and may not have had a single teacher contact yet is very alarming to me. Obviously, the internet issues, it's all throughout the plan, so I appreciate that it is stated there. I think that, we talked about the hotspots and different things, and the parking lot internet that's coming soon. I think those are all positive, but I'm not sure what we've been waiting for. I don't know if we have to do this plan and then we can access the funding to make those purchases, or how that works, but I think we were trying to figure out, like, well, what's the best solution and how do we serve everybody? And while trying to figure out how to serve everybody, we also have wasted a lot of time, I guess, in trying to troubleshoot for everybody, as opposed to how do we get more students linked in to be able to do their distance learning. So hotspots, obviously there's places in Hoopa that it's not going to work, but at this point we just got to try to pump out and get as much connectivity as we can while all of these other projects are also happening. Speaking of teachers that may or may not have direct contact or open lines of communication with families, I think that similar to how we've been trying to gauge how many families and how many households have internet connectivity, I think we need to do the same with working families, or what their home situation is. Do you have an adult to help you do what you need to do on those devices? Obviously, that's a little different for high school students, but I think especially for those younger children, that's a big factor. And if we have, this is talking from even just our Indian Center programs that are doing one-on-one tutoring. It's been a challenge to even get tutoring time because some of those families and parents, they don't have a strong internet connection. It's only their mobile device. They're running home for lunch, trying to get it to work. Even then, they're not in a great service space. So how do they maneuver that? So obviously, I know there are things to navigate, like contract hours and what have you, but I think, again, that's where the above and beyond teachers are doing what they have to do, figure out how to make contact when they make contact. But I do think that that's a factor, is what the household learning environment and supports, especially for adults of younger children, I think is a huge factor and could be another, I guess, barrier that some families are navigating. I know I was for a little while. I made my first Zoom today. So that's been a challenge for many. And then the devices, I think that the devices, I'm sorry, and this is about it, so thank you for bearing with me. The devices, I know at one point we chose Chromebooks and we received this awesome grant for iPads, and I think the iPads are still working great. I was happy to see that keyboards will be available so that students will be able to type documents better. That's all great. But for the software and the applications that are being used, Chromebooks are only efficient in the school setting. I don't know how to best use them in our homes with such horrible connection. So I don't know if this is true, and this is probably something to confirm with David, but it sounds like there are some families that haven't even been able to get on Zoom on a Chromebook, and so it's easier to use Google Classroom, Google Meets on a Chromebook, but we still have teachers that are using Zoom and expecting families with a Chromebook to access Zoom, and I don't know if that's possible or not, but it sounds like that's been an ongoing challenge for families. So I wanted to relay that as well. And I think I'm done.
Thank you.
You're muted, Jen.
Erica, that was a lot. That was great.
Yes.
That was really helpful because those kinds of comments are exactly the kind of thing that, from where I'm sitting, I look for because I have some of the background knowledge and it's just in my head and I put it on paper and I think it's very clear. And so some of the details that you've asked for, I can supply. We have them. I just didn't know, the document ended up being much longer than I ever expected it was going to be. And so there's that whole, like, how much is too much? There's definitely some things to be clarified. But my question to you is, is all of this going to come to me in a written form? Because I took notes and I have some responses, but have you captured all of that?
I tried to capture it in an email, at least for my page-to-page comments. I definitely highlighted that. So I can email that, like I said, right after this. Those dates of like our order, I have an attachment that I had to send some of our funding agencies. So I was going to just attach that and send that to you.
Okay, I just took broad
and
notes.
I just needed the confirmation from our public utilities district for our sentence regarding our broadband efforts here in
Perfect.
NERPA.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have just, there's really, I just want to I took a couple of notes. One thing, in terms of like the lion's share of concern with connectivity and devices. One of the things is a lot of things are in progress and we're waiting for distribution.
Okay.
Putting in
that makes sense.
orders. And I think that maybe I've been more in touch with the teachers that you described as the above and beyond, because after the first 2 days of school, somebody texted me and said, I just made 17 hours of phone calls over 2 days. So,
right.
So I do.
And I think that that's absolutely happening. Yes. And I don't know which is the majority either at this point. So I don't know if the majority are above and beyond making regular contact and meaningful contact. I think that's the other thing too, is it's one thing to make contact and have, attempts, but also how meaningful is that contact? So I don't have a measure, and I don't know that our administrators have that measure yet either, like even in terms of, who's actually logging on to the virtual classrooms and who haven't we seen once, and how many packets have not been picked up or received at all. And I know Outreach and others are working hard to try to, go above and beyond to try to get packets to people. But I just think that there's still a lot of opportunity for families and kids especially to fall through the cracks and have it be completely off our radars until we return to quote unquote normal. And then that learning loss is just unsurmountable.
Thank you. That was very, yeah. I mean, at first you said you weren't saying things positive. I think it's just pointing out, I think clarifying funds and what we mean by things. That's the whole purpose of doing this and not just adopting it. So appreciate that.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Erica.
Thank you. I will send that email to Jen, Trish, and David, if that works.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All righty. Thank you all.
Good night. Thanks.
Bye. I also received.
Next, Trish.
You're welcome. I also received written comments, so I'll share my screen and I'll read those comments. So this first one was from Lacey McKinnon. She said, pretty much most of the work I can help with my 3 high schoolers. My biggest issue is teaching them math. And I know math, but I learned completely different when I went to school, but I'm supposed to teach them, let me make this smaller, a totally different way, and I don't understand that way. I know the usage of an iPad is offered, but we just happen to live in one of the few spots that does not get internet. With this problem, I need help. Anything? I got a comment from Mamie Donahue. She said, Ayuki, I'm a parent of an Orleans student. I do not support full reopening at this time due to risk of COVID. I am open to a slow reopening of small pods with outdoor organized play with special needs and high-risk students getting in-person accommodations. Thank you. I received another comment from Lydia Robbins. She says, hello, my name is Lydia Robbins, parent of Orleans students and a Hoopa High student. I truly believe learning and school is very important to my children, and I want them to grow up and be successful and play in sports. I am concerned of sending them back to school because of this virus. I believe at least to start out with is going maybe 3 times a week and taking all safety precautions as well. I honestly wouldn't want my child wearing a mask all day at school. I believe every parent and child should have a rapid test before going back. I look forward to my children attending school again, but as long as it's safe. I got a comment from Mr. Thomas Bay. He says, hi, I've had the opportunity to be on many Google Meets supporting students in the classroom. Over the last few days, internet quality has been very poor for both students and teachers working from home and campus. I know that with limited options for internet choices, but it has been difficult for both teachers and students to engage in education, and I wanted the board to be aware of some of the challenges we are facing in the classroom. I got a couple questions from Vivina Orchid. She wanted updates on the need for improved educational practices in online instruction, state broadband package, and an update on the 7/24/2020 KTJ-USD application for the state learning loss mitigation funding.
Hey, Trish,
Yes.
before you go to the next, can you go back to Viv's questions, just because they were questions?
Yes.
And rather than saying, oh, I'll, address them next week, the next meeting. Yeah, these are great questions. I'll start with the easy one, the state broadband package. I don't have an update, but we have 2 people that I've been in communication with at the County Office of Ed. And so that's all I have for that, is that they are continuing to have communications. And so the next one that I'd like to address is the need for improved educational practices and actual online instruction. And I'm kind of interpreting what the update that you're wanting is on that. We are trying to address that by providing time for teachers to both collaborate and have professional development. So I guess that ties into the third one, which is the learning loss mitigation funding. But I do want to say, in terms of the educational practices, there was a lot of planning that went into, and there's kind of a lot of self-reflection about the packets that went home in the spring, and the striving to improve the quality of them during this time, especially knowing that we may be continuing with distance learning for quite some time, and some families will probably opt for it for the entire year. So the purpose of the learning continuity plan is to basically say, how are we going to take the learning loss mitigation funds and apply them to improve services to students? So the points that are outlined in the learning continuity plan, in terms of allocating money for hotspots, for example, or allocating money for personal protective equipment, or just actual physical barriers in the classroom, with that being for the on-site in-person learning. That's how the learning loss mitigation funding is basically allocated, is through this plan. So, and again, but it's like budgets are like this. This is your best guess. We allocate certain amounts of funds for things based on what we know at any moment in time. And then if the cost of plexiglass quadruples overnight, then our budget will be off. So that's how, the process is. But looking at what the needs are, and we clearly need internet connectivity. We clearly need some supplemental materials for students, that, remedial materials. We clearly need to make sure that we have the safety equipment. So that's how this is the way of allocating the funds based on the needs. So I hope that addresses your question.
And then my final comment that I received was from Tana Tripp. She said, hello, we are in favor of continuing distance learning. We feel that it is not safe to gather together, particularly in a school setting. Thank you, Emilio and Tana Tripp. And then if I could step outside. Oh, I do have one more.
Okay, yeah.
I remember. Give me a second. This one is from Miss Tina West. She says, Dear Miss Jen and Board of Trustees, I am writing as a parent of children of Hoopa Elementary and have a few comments I would like you to take into consideration regarding the KTJUSD Learning Continuity Plan. Thank you for inviting our voices into this process. It is impossible for me to share my ideas as a parent without also wearing my teacher hat. Thank you for understanding. First of all, community engagement is a must and honestly needs to be increased. KT needs to utilize the systems already in place, such as robocalls, food delivery, and daily communications with teachers. Teachers can include the surveys or information in our packets, check in with families about them, promote how important they are, provide incentives for completed and return items, and follow up with families who are not returning them. The KT Tech department could be making paper and video tutorials for all the ways families need to interface with KT technology, such as logging into Chromebooks, an overview of the KT webpage, accessing Google Classroom, ST Math, Edgenuity, keyboarding without tears, etc. It is ineffective to have each teacher make their own print and digital versions of these system-wide programs. Families deserve to have uniform information for all their students. KTJUSD needs to pursue grants and scholarships for purchasing and providing hotspots to families without internet access. We cannot expect a child to do a paper packet they have not been taught how to do. Social emotional learning needs to be at the forefront of our teaching right now. Families are overwhelmed with the world as it is, and adding homeschooling is stressing us to the max. I recommend the district look into adopting research-based comprehensive TK through 12 SEL curriculum, ruler approach for teaching and learning about emotions. It is not enough for there to be a hit or miss mismatched SEL programs in these unprecedented times. We all want to get back to in-person learning, and we trust the decision to return to in-person school will be based on science. When we return, we all want to be safe. I offer hybrid model of an AB cohort, with cohort A coming to school Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday is online learning from home while the school is getting deep cleaned, with cohort B coming in on Thursday and Friday. I believe families should still have the option to stay on distance learning if they feel that is best for them. I also offer that the most vulnerable teachers can take on these homeschool families. It may be multiple grades, but most of their learning can be digital. As a teacher, I do not want to have to keep providing packets and provide in-person instruction. As a parent, I think it is best to have the option of either keeping our students on distance learning or sending them to school quarterly, depending on the family's needs. Having classrooms formed by in-person or distance learning will ease the workload for teachers. Personally, I will be sending my children to school when it is deemed safe. They really miss their teachers and peers. Thank you for your time in inviting parent and community voices to this process. And then if I could just kind of step outside my role here right now and give public comment, I would just like to see there be an incentive for students and or families who participate regularly and have good attendance. I know we are monitoring that in many different ways. And I think it would be good to have incentives for those who are doing such, and also for those who might not be so engaged right now, but maybe getting some AirPods might incentivize it a little bit more.
Well,
Jen?
actually, Trish, I wanted you to say we had a conversation about that, and I think it's worth noting, since I know what you've been doing during the week, that discussion came out of actually a SARB review it wasn't reviewing students, it was a review of the SARB, the entire process. And I think that that is really worth noting in terms of the context of how SARB is mentioned, because it is a mechanism, and it kind of has been the mechanism, not necessarily effectively for all districts, but it certainly is what truancy is in ed code, and there's a certain process. So I think it's just referenced in terms of, here's what we have at our disposal, what are some of the other mechanisms that we can increase attendance. And so that, Trish's comments about incentivizing and really looking at positive ways to promote attendance instead of punitive ways I think is important, that the SARB process and the people who are involved with that are really reflecting on how effective is this, not only in increasing attendance, but the kids' attitudes towards school and relationship building. So I really am appreciative that there is, we're looking at some ways of revising the ways that we're doing attendance accountability. And that was at a county-wide meeting.
And that was all that I had for public comment.
All right. Carrie? Carrie?
Are board members allowed to comment? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I read the new draft, and I was really pleased to see all the additions to the new draft, especially since most of them were after having the parents, parent advisory committee meetings and the surveys. A lot of that information was put into this draft, which was really great. Thank you for all the people that worked on this. I know Jen and Dave and then lots of people have, added to this. There were a few corrections that I wanted to make on the draft, just punctuation type corrections or wording or whatever. On page 1 of the draft, in the first paragraph, it said the number 1 goal is to provide instruction and education, included services. I'm thinking that should have been including services of support that are in the best interest of students. I'm thinking it should be including. And then the last sentence of that same paragraph said information contained in this document covers input up to September 15th. Does it also cover September 17th? Because we did meet as a parent advisory committee on the 17th.
There are a couple of things that, yes, and I think Dave, we're going to do a draft after this meeting. So it'll be updated and it'll say as of September 24th, I think will be, the next couple of days we'll take input and put it in. So that would not have been
Okay.
where it would have started. So thank you.
Okay, and then the second paragraph on that same page. Let's see. The sentence, with recommendations and mandates coming from global, national, state, county levels, the district has collaborated primarily in conjunction with the local tribes to ensure the community is healthy. And there should be an and in there, healthy, and that the educational offerings, and then that should be are provided safely and adhere to standards that are in.
Yes.
Okay. I highlighted all the new stuff that was put in. I was really pleased about all the new stuff that was put in. There was one part that was taken out and I thought it was important to put back in again, and that was on page 2 in the paragraph on discussions. It says the limitations to reliable internet service and lack of broadband in the Klamath Trinity region have significant impact to the delivery of any web-based instruction. Then the next sentence says, for surveys, stakeholder meetings, and discussions. I'm thinking that this sentence should have come right after the limitation sentence, and that is, this will be an ongoing discussion either through distance or face-to-face or hybrid. And then also on the through surveys, stakeholder meetings and whatever, I put that it should including a parent advisory committee meeting on August 10th. Should have been put back in there or put in there.
So Carrie, are you asking that we include and make sure that we're saying that this will be an ongoing discussion? That's what you noticed was out, that should be returned. And that, and I got
Yes.
that very same guidance from the county after this draft came out that, it's the kind of, there's no limit. So I'm making note on that.
Okay, on page 4, the Parent Advisory Committee focused on input from the following 2 prompts. It's right after the word cleanliness, right near the top on number 2.
Yep.
That next sentence says, having safety measures in place and knowing who should be in there, who is responsible for their implementation. I think that was all except for page 20. On page 20, there was a strange place under school support personnel. The last sentence under school support personnel says, this allows for these services to be provided during the whole day of operation rather than the halftime previously, and then determine students may need more support this year. Is that a sentence or was something left out? What?
That looks like a cut and paste disaster. But yeah,
Okay.
there was things that I definitely, one of the things that I did when I took this into my hands was I organized some of the themes differently. I took the same content and just, I had to kind of put it into these categories of, meals, support personnel. So I think the intention there is this was specifically with the health clerk now being full-time, allows for the services to be provided during the whole day of operation rather. And the intention is to talk about how it was how we've increased services to students in terms of their health and their access to mental health services and counseling. So that definitely, it's a wordsmithing, but it's basically the intention is we used to do it as a halftime position. We've increased that. So I think it's just the entire day of operations. I think anybody could also figure out if you went from a 0.5 to a 1.0, we've doubled the services. But yes, it looks funky, and thank you for pointing that out.
The very last thing that I hoped would have been included, because I thought this was a really good idea, because people are talking about support for parents. And I heard this in one of the parent advisory committee meetings that somebody suggested, and it could have been one of the teachers, that we have flash drives. It might have been Maggie, in fact, sent out to parents that direct them how to access various apps and how to, how to do things that they don't know how to do. I think that was a really good idea, and it should be included in this.
And that's consistent with one of the comments that we just got about giving supports to parents. So that's good. It's good to hear when it's stated in different ways with the goal. I think that was in Tina West's comments about providing that tech support. I'm just going to make a note at the end. And then we'll review the Parent Advisory Committee. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, and Dave, and whoever else put all this. Probably Tricia was involved as well. Thank you.
Laura Lee, you're on mute.
Yeah, so
Laura Lee, you're okay.
Yeah, I just had one thing in addition to the edits that Carrie made, and that is that the Klamath Trinity Joint Unified School District, the name, there's a hyphen between Klamath and Trinity.
Thank you. Did you see that consistently throughout, not hyphenated or just in the beginning?
Consistent, pretty much.
Okay, I can do a search and change, I think. Yes, I see it multiple places.
Anyone else? I want to say thank you for all the work that the team has done on this. It's a lot of work.
Can I
Great.
make a couple of comments, Lois, before we?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
So basically, the learning continuity plan is, I'm going to actually read something from the CDE website, just because of the way it states it is that the learning continuity plan memorializes the planning process already underway for the 2020-21 school year and includes descriptions of the following: gaps in learning, stakeholder engagement. So I just wanted to reference that there's not a whole lot of operational material in the learning continuity plan. It's really the planning that has happened, and the planning has been so dynamic based on health and safety information, of course, is the kind of the leading, it's the lead. And even in going through the draft from the previous drafts, it's kind of a hard document to capture, because something that was true 4 weeks ago may simply be obsolete. And so I was faced with, like, do I take it out? Because things had changed so much. And I think that I think it was in Erica's comment saying, the surveys that we're getting from parents, how that's another moving target. So there's so many moving pieces. And I just want to also appreciate, the administrators and managers and all of the staff, and having to kind of, do the quick shifting of what the expectation is, because, we can't make any plans that would jeopardize people's health. So we wait for a lot of data. And the good thing is that the data is trending in a way that is favorable towards our health and safety. So we're coming, we're halfway through the 6-week cycle. So this week we'll start discussions about what the next 6 weeks should look like. We're still, even with the health and safety data trending favorably, we are getting the very preliminary discussions are looking at going really conservatively and making sure people have the support and time to coordinate any plans. The thing that we will be able to work on this week, we're waiting any moment, is having access to the parking lot for internet connectivity. We're just finalizing some of the technical things, and so that's David, and then Angie is working on making sure that people are that we have clear protocols in terms of the accessibility of the facilities. So if somebody's coming to use the internet, that it's exclusively that, it's not going into the classroom, not going into the office, that we're still really maintaining as much or as little contact as possible. So things are changing pretty quickly. And so that's a good thing that we've figured out how to, there's always risks with taking action, and there's risks with not taking action. There's risks with sending kids to school, and there's risks with not allowing kids to come to campus, as has been pointed out. So balancing all of those things it is the ongoing process. But the good news is some of these immediate needs, and again, it's not going to solve the problem for everybody or even the majority of people, but it can provide some relief, is once we are able to accurately say, here's how the parking lot Wi-Fi access will look, just wait for it, it'll be soon, then we think that will alleviate a lot of the congestion that people are getting with their access to their devices. And then the other thing is just that we're asking the staff to really, be aware, and staff are the ones that bring this up. This is not my idea, but just really coordinating services for families so that their Google Meets are not all happening at the same time. So across different grade levels. But we're looking at the next few weeks being able to say, here's what the second hex cycle will look like. So again, it's only Tuesday. Just yesterday, we started the discussions. There's staff meetings this week where we'll get more information. So I just wanted to say, stay tuned. So we'll have some more information next week about what we expect the second cycle will look like. Does any of the board have any questions
Trish,
about operations at all?
Yes.
could you announce to the board when our next special meeting is and time?
Our next special meeting will be next week, Tuesday, the 29th at 5 p.m.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board members? All right, hearing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
This is Carrie Waddy. I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
This is Rob Wild. I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Let's vote. Rob Wild,
Aye.
Rob, Martha McLaughlin. You're
Aye.
muted, Martha. Okay. Carrie Waddy,
Aye.
Laura Lee George,
Aye.
Lois Risling. Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Aye.